Top of funnel, completely unaware. Middle of the funnel, awareness, but need more information. Bottom of the funnel, I know what I need. I need to connect with somebody. Who is that somebody? Somebody is going to be you, right? Why is this concept important to understand? Because you need to understand where in the client journey are you finding them. Well, hello and welcome to the Profit with Law podcast. I'm your host, Moshe Amsel, and today we continue the 5-part series on how to make 2026 your most profitable, best year ever in your law firm. Our first part, we talked about the mindset that you need to adopt, how you need to think like an owner, like an investor, and how critical that is to everything that you do in your business, all the decision making. In the second part of the series, we talked about the lever of pricing and how important pricing is in the structure of your business. And it's not just how much you charge, but it's how you package and deliver the service offering to your clients. How you present it to them really matters and really affects the situation and is key in the game of leverage that business is played on. Well, the next piece of the puzzle, and really the format I'm taking is like, okay, let's focus on the top line first. So what's going to drive the revenue number in the door? And revenue has two components. One is the pricing and the packaging of the service that you're offering. And then the second piece is what's going to drive customers to you? What is going to let people know that this is who you serve and this is the problem you solve? And that's the job of marketing in your business. Now, many firm owners, when you start to add staff to your business, you start to add associates, what ends up happening is you realize that what's worked for you up until now is not going to work for you in this next phase. And basically, when you're a solo and you're a sole operator, what ends up happening is that you have these peaks and valleys of revenue. And the peaks and valleys of revenue is created by the fact that you're only one person. And therefore, when you're busy trying to get clients, you're not serving clients. And when you get clients and you're serving them, you're not trying to find new clients. So what ends up happening is that you get this vicious cycle of feast or famine. I'm basically out there looking for clients. I'm getting no money. Or I'm serving clients, I might be getting a lot of money. And that happens on and off. So it feels really good when you're serving clients, but when you're not serving clients, it feels desperate. When you bring on an associate and now the associate is handling the work, you can focus full time on getting clients. But that only works to a certain extent. At some point, your runway runs out. Your ability to find clients on your own runs out, and you need some other leverage. You need to position yourself some other way in the marketplace to be able to attract people in a more uniform or a more predictable fashion. Now, marketing only gets you part of the way there because it gets the leads in the door. And then from there, you've got the sales team. It could be you. It could be hired salespeople. It could be a sales attorney or your attorneys are doing the sales. But from there is, and law firms like to call this intake. But from there's this process of basically taking the lead and getting them to become a client of the firm. I'm going to focus today on marketing. And marketing only because we're going to fill up a full episode just talking about that. We could talk about the sales team. Our next episode, we're going to be talking about staffing. So we'll touch on sales in that process, in that conversation. But for now, suffice it to say that if we don't get the leads in the door, there's nothing to sell, right? There's nobody to sell to. So we really need to understand marketing and understand this lever and how powerful it can be if we simply pull it in order to drive the top line revenue or the goal that we set for 2026. So when we talked about our mindset episode, we talked about really naming your destination and understanding where you're trying to go and what does that look like? How many clients do I need to serve to get there? So once you solve the pricing piece, you now have a clearer number on how many clients you need to acquire. All right, so we're about to jump into this marketing talk, but before we do, let me just share this quick opportunity with you. We have been working with attorneys in a coaching program. So this is specifically for solos and smalls. So if you're below $2 million in revenue, this is a conversation for you. We've been working with law firms and helping them in this process of accelerating their growth significantly in a 12-month period. So basically, we want to get you these wins over the course of 1 year. We had been taking people on this journey in the first 6 to 12 weeks of the program, where we basically were helping them to completely plan out what this looks like for them. What does the next 12 months look like? And make sure that they're really clear about the actions they need to take. Well, we're moving away from that. And we took all of that and truncated it and put it into a 2-day program. This is a 2-day workshop where we do a ton of work together to workshop how you price your services, workshop who you're serving, workshop how you're serving them, workshop what your staff needs to look like, workshop how you're going to get those staff, find those staff members, hire them, and bring them up to speed. If this is something that you feel is something you need, right? If you want to get to, and the tagline we're using for the workshop is 100K per month workshop, right? So if you want to get to 100K per month in revenue or 100K per month in profit, whichever phase of business you're in that talks to you, then you want to be a seat in that room. We're limiting it to 20 people. So go to profitwithlaw.com/LFG 2026, profitwithlaw.com/LFG 2026, stands for law firm growth. In case you're not hearing my letters, law firm growth LFG 2026, or let's effing go, right? But whatever it is, your butt needs to be in a seat in that room for 2 days. And what's interesting is that we'll talk to people and they're like, oh, well, the dates that you have selected are not convenient. I have a court appearance that I need to be at, or I've got something going on. Here's the thing. I don't need you to come. Right? There's going to be 20 people in the room. You get to choose whether that person is you or not. But I guarantee you, if somebody called you up and said, hey, I'm going to be giving out $1 million tomorrow, and if you're here in this place at this time, I will give it to you. Well, if you've got a court appearance at that time, guess what you're going to do? You're not going to say, oh, sorry, I have a court appearance at that time. It's not convenient for me. You can give $1 million to somebody else instead. No, what you're going to do is you're going to find another attorney to cover you. You're going to contact the court and say, hey, I can't make it. We need to adjourn this. We need to reschedule this and get that schedule changed. You're not going to allow practically anything on your calendar to come in your way. Well, that's exactly what we're doing. We're offering you the secret of how to drive $1 million in revenue or $1 million in profit in your business. If you want it, you'll be in the room. So, real talk, if this is important enough to you, you're going to find a way to be there. Go to profitwithlaw.com/LFG 2026. Okay, let's talk about marketing. So, the very first thing that we need to understand is that marketing is going out there and finding a very specific person. And the biggest cardinal sin that firms do is they try to find everyone instead of being very specific about who you're trying to find. Now, you cannot find everyone with the same marketing message. It's even in the same niche or the same, like here, I'll give you an example. Let's say estate planning, right? There's probably 4 different types of people who might buy an estate plan. Maybe there's a lot more than that, right? But there might be somebody who is reaching an age of fulfillment in their career. They're reaching an age where they're approaching retirement. They're thinking about the rest of their lives, and they've got their full nest egg prepared and ready to deploy. And they are primed to be worried about what happens to me, what happens to my fortune when I die, right? That's one potential person. Another potential person is a child or a group of children who have aging parents. And they're like, my parents never did anything to worry about what's going to happen to their assets when they die. It's very important to us that they have this conversation, that they don't avoid it. Can we bring them and put them in the room with you, right? That's number 2. Number 3, somebody in their 40s, young kids. They're more concerned about who's going to take care of their kids if they're not there. What's going to happen to their kids if both spouses perish, God forbid, right? Like, those are the things that concern them. So we have 3 different people we just painted, all completely different languages and ways of getting their attention, completely different pain points and issues that they're trying to solve. If you go into the marketplace and you have a message, it's going to talk to one of those three. It's not going to talk to all three of them. You can't just go in and say, hey, I'm an estate planning attorney. If you need an estate plan, come here, right? I mean, you can, but you're not going to get traction with that. Traction is going to come from having a message that is on point to the specific target client that you're trying to acquire. So, understanding that, it is crucial that you get really, really clear about who it is that you're trying to serve. Who is it that we're going to be working on getting this marketing with? Okay, so that's step number one. That is so important, and so many firm owners skip that step. And then they wonder why it's not working, right? Like putting up a billboard with your name on it might work for somebody who's got 100 billboards and splattered across the entire metropolitan area. But even then, I question whether that's the only thing they're doing, right? Like if that's not you don't have that kind of budget. You got to be smarter than that, right? So number one, we got to focus on one specific practice area, one specific offering in that practice area, one specific target client. Get super, super focused. And the more dialed in you get, the more effective your marketing will be. It also will help you determine what your marketing effort should be, because you're going to follow where your client is. You're going to try to figure out, where are they hanging out? What are they doing? How do I get in front of them? And you can't do that when you have many different people you're looking at. Which now brings us to the next step, which is the client journey. What is the journey the client takes? And this is really important, because when we think about marketing, right, we've heard the terms top of funnel, bottom of funnel, but what does that mean? Well, if we think about the awareness of a client, right, at some point they're unaware that they have a problem. They're unaware that that problem has a solution. They're unaware of you as the provider being somebody who provides that solution, right? So they don't know that they have a problem. They don't know the solution. They don't know the solution provider, and they certainly don't know the product the solution provider sells or what it looks like, right? So those are levels of awareness in the marketplace. And when we say top of funnel, it's somebody who's completely unaware. And then when we say middle of funnel, right, and these are terms that you might have heard marketers throw out, and if you haven't, then you're learning them here, right? But basically, think of a funnel as like this thing that gets smaller over time, right? So like as people go through it, you're filtering more and more people out, right? So at the top of the funnel, you have all the people who are unaware. They don't know that there's a problem. Then you get middle of the funnel. These are people who become aware that they have a problem. And now they're trying to figure out what is the solution to that problem. Or they become aware of the solution to the problem, and they're trying to figure out who is a solution provider that provides this solution to the problem. And then you get bottom of the funnel. Bottom of the funnel are people who are now aware of your business. They know you exist, and you have to just get them to take the next action, get them to pick up the phone, get them to submit a form or to chat with you on the website. So top of funnel, completely unaware. Middle of the funnel, awareness, but need more information. Bottom of the funnel, I know what I need. I need to connect with somebody. Who is that somebody? Somebody is going to be you, right? Why is this concept important to understand? Because you need to understand where in the client journey are you finding them. I'll give you an example. Let's say you are a criminal defense attorney. Well, criminal defense, if you go to top of funnel, if you go to unaware, right, and you just splatter the internet with an ad for your business, or you splatter your name on billboards, right? It's because people are unaware. So you want to make them aware, right? Most people are not going to get arrested. Most people are not going to ever need to pick up the phone and call you. However, the moment that somebody gets arrested, they might have seen your billboard 1,000,000 times. Guess what they're going to do? They're going to go on Google and they're going to search for criminal defense attorney near me. Now, if they happen to come across your name and your name matches what they saw on a billboard 1,000,000 times, that recognition might get you the phone call. But the reality is that the optimal place to look for somebody if you're a criminal defense attorney is middle of the funnel. It's the people who are aware they have a problem, but they don't know what the solution is. They need more information. And if you can educate them on that first phone call when they call you, and that first form that's submitted and you respond to them, if you can educate them on how the system works, how you can represent them, what it takes and why they need representation, you can get a client. Because you're closing the gap from awareness of a problem to now awareness of a solution provider, and then the specifics of that solution for them. Another example, estate planning. Most people are not walking around thinking, I need an estate plan. Most people are walking around knowing that estate planning exists in theory, but thinking, I'm not successful enough, I'm not old enough, it doesn't pertain to me yet, right? And they also don't understand what it is. So they are in the total top of the funnel area, right? They're completely unaware. They're unaware of the problem. They don't even know what the problem is that estate planning solves. You have to make them aware of the problem. How do you make somebody aware of the problem? Awareness of the problem comes from education. So we have to somehow enter their world and disrupt them and let them know this problem is something that you have. And now that we identified this problem and we showed you how important it is, now let's show you the solution, right? So you have to take them on this educational journey to educate them and teach them what the problem is and how it can be solved. Which is why if you're an estate planning attorney, targeting Google search, for example, is not going to be, that's a middle of the funnel advertising, right? That's not going to be a great place to find people. You're going to have some people looking there, but the gold mine, the real way to get people is to go top of funnel, to educate them, which is why a model that includes workshops, webinars is so successful in the estate planning world, because we need to educate the clients for them to understand why they should be looking at us. So the practice area that you chose and the target market that you choose to go after will dictate where in the client journey am I entering? Where in the client journey am I starting the conversation? And that's going to drive where I should market. So understanding that concept, which is probably the most important marketing concept for you to understand as a business owner, understanding that concept already starts putting you in a direction. Now, if you're trying to achieve consistent results in your marketing, you probably have to spend money. You probably have to invest in the marketing to get those results. But I want to take one detour. I want to talk about the ultimate free marketing that you have at your fingertips. This is something that so many attorneys, because you have sat through so many marketing talks at conferences, because you've listened to so many podcast interviews regarding marketing, but who's doing those talks and those interviews? It's marketing agency owners, marketing agency staff, right? So their job is to tell you why you need to spend money on their marketing thing. Their job is not to stand there and tell you, hey, there's this free marketing source that you should go and take advantage of. It's I did tax prep for Intuit for one tax season, and they have a product that you can file your tax return for free. Very minimal and very specific to who it's for, but somebody with just a W-2, nothing else, and they don't need a state tax return, fit the bill, right? And they can have a free product. That was their marketing to get somebody in the door, but we were not allowed to talk about the free option, right? Like, we weren't allowed to direct people there. We were supposed to try to keep them into the ecosystem where they're paying for the software, paying for the service. So vendors don't mean any ill by it, but vendors are going to direct you to the thing that's their expertise. So you probably have a ton of at least surface knowledge on SEO, surface knowledge on Google PPC, surface knowledge on Google LSAs, surface knowledge on billboards, TV spots, whatever. But the thing that nobody's talking about, or very few people are talking about, and the thing that most firm owners skip or don't do, you probably did it to some extent, but you're not doing it full out. You're not playing full out in this arena. And I invite you to go here first, because when done correctly, this can be a super valuable long-term solution in the overall marketing of your firm. And that is this. There are professionals that will come in contact with your potential client, right? And if you can just get them to send that person to you, you've essentially created a marketing system, right? So what am I talking about? Well, number one, attorneys. Now, you might think, well, Moshe, this doesn't make any sense. Why would I go to my competition and tell them to refer me business? Well, there's a number of reasons to do this, but first, who says we're talking about your competition? Well, I don't believe in competition, but that's another conversation for another day. But I invite you to go to every attorney in your geographic area, regardless of practice area. Hey, I'm so-and-so. I'm fairly new, or I'm not fairly new, right? But I wanted to learn a little bit more about you and what you do. And I also want to share with you a little bit about me and what I do. I want to tell you who my ideal client is, who's the best client that I serve. Because if you ever have the opportunity to refer somebody to me, I'd be forever thankful. And to the same token, I'd love to know what you do so that I can understand if I ever have somebody who comes to me and that you would be the perfect provider for them, I want to send them your way. Relationships with other attorneys create this reciprocal arrangement where they send you business, you send them business. Have a lot of these in place. And then what happens is all these other firms are spending money on marketing. They're attracting people who are not a good fit for them. Where are they sending them? Well, if you've created these relationships, very likely they're sending some to you. So you're even harnessing their paid channels and having those come back to you, which is really cool. Now, even if somebody is in your practice area, here is why you should still talk to them and you should still invite them to send you clients. Number one, if you're in an area of business where there's two parties, then chances are they're doing conflict checks and they might be conflicted out of representing somebody. That somebody now needs to go somewhere else. What if they can send them to you? So that's number one. Number two, there's big and small opportunities, right? There's complex and easy. They might only serve one of those. They might only serve big clients, not small clients. They might only serve complex clients, not easy ones, or vice versa, right? What if you can take the other ones? I had somebody on the podcast, and my team will find this episode and link it up in the show notes. And he built a massive medical malpractice business. And he started his business by going to other medical malpractice firms and basically telling them, I'll take all your stinky fish. I'll take all of your cases that you think have a very poor chance of success that you just want to get out of, and I will take them to the finish line and I'll share it with you. And that's how he built his business. And he was able to take all of these poor cases and pour his heart and soul into it to figure out exactly how to get the upper hand, how to win, by just showing up more knowledgeable than the opposing party and being able to get payouts for these clients, and ultimately built his business off of the back of that. Don't underestimate the power of your so-called competition sending business to you. Now, it goes beyond attorneys. So attorneys is step one. But let's think beyond that. Let's think about who else might somebody come in contact with in their journey of crisis, right? So for estate planning, it's a little bit different, right? Like we might want to collaborate with financial professionals, financial planners, CPAs, stuff like that, and just create opportunities to serve their clients with informational sessions, workshops, things like that. But what about criminal defense, right? And obviously, you got to make sure you're in line with your ethics rules. But I mean, everything from police officers, court clerks, bondsmen, jail bondsmen, and often like there's rules about what you can and cannot do, but there's other things that you can do, like signage outside of a bondsman's office, or perhaps you're leaving your cards there for somebody to just take if they walk in. And again, some of these things are allowed, some are not allowed. You got to check your state rules. But you got to think of the different types of professionals somebody's going to come in contact with. Family lawyers, right? I mean, just get to know every single marriage counselor in the area. Because if they can't fix it in counseling, guess what the counselor is going to recommend? I recommend that you go ahead and go and divorce each other, right? So if we think of the client journey and it's like, okay, what's the step before they need my service? Well, guess what? The step before is another professional. What if all those professionals knew about me, right? Chances are their clients can be like, okay, great. Where do I go? How do I start? Well, here's a card. Here's an email intro to an attorney in town, right? So your free marketing, it's not free, right? It requires labor. It requires you having conversations, making connections, and you can't just have one connection and done. It's an ongoing pursuit. So you need to establish relationships and keep them. But you can systemize it. Stacey Brown Randall in her book, what's the title of the book? How to get referrals without asking, or something like that. Get referrals without asking. You can find it on Amazon. So Stacey Brown Randall, she was also a podcast guest, and my team can share the interview where she talks about this. But essentially, she lays out this idea that every single referral source, you have the opportunity to have a touch point with them. And it takes a certain number of touch points a year for you to stay top of mind, right? But you could systemize those touch points, because touch points could be sitting down for coffee, but it could also be something a lot more scalable than that, like sending a holiday card, sending an email, just a little note saying I'm thinking of you, sending a gift. There's all kinds of stuff, and she's got a scoring system for higher value and lower value touch points. So you want to have at least a few high value touch points throughout the year, but you also want to have a bunch of low value touch points so that you stay top of mind. So there is a way to not only find these referral sources, but to systemize the process of staying in touch with them and staying top of mind, so that when an opportunity comes, they send it your way. So if we can, let's just say that you decided, hey, according to my numbers, I need to get to 20 clients a month in order to achieve this result. Well, what if each referral source can send you one client a month? Well, it's simple math. You need 20 referral sources to get 20 clients a month. Well, what if each referral source sends you one client every 2 months? Okay, we need 40 referral sources. Now, this doesn't have to be your only marketing strategy, but as long as you have more opportunity for referral sources, you can play this game. One of the things that is the hardest thing to do is to win at paid marketing, right? Now, you could do it. It requires staying power. We're going to talk about paid marketing in a moment. But why not try to get as much free marketing in the door as you can? So you have this massive opportunity in front of you to do something that nobody else is doing. People don't do things that require you to take action, right? Like, people are lazy. Somebody has to be motivated as you, or more motivated than you, in order to execute on this. And chances are you don't have anybody who is doing this, that's competing against you, that you're going to keep running up against, because they're already referring cases to so and so. And even so, there's always room, right? Like, there's always opportunity for people to like you better, to be more aligned with you, to have the right, clients, or a poor experience with somebody else. They want to come to you. you never know, right? Like the world is your oyster. It's wide open, and you just have to step through the door, right? Okay, so once we've tackled free marketing, let's say we're beyond that. Let's say we've done all of that, and or it's not going to happen fast enough for me, and I need to accelerate this. Well, then we can go to paid sources. Now, for paid sources, I think the most important thing to understand is marketing agencies are going to sell you what they are good at. They're going to sell you what they're good at. They're going to find a way to box you into their box, to box you into this is what you need. So you cannot go into the marketplace and find a vendor who's going to then tell you this is where you should start. You have to go into the marketplace with awareness. So let me help you with just the broad strokes, right? There's two types of paid sources on digital marketing specifically, which is search-based and interruption-based. So search-based marketing is stuff that you're probably well familiar with. There's SEO, which is free to play, but it's expensive to set up. It's got a long time frame. You have to invest in it for a long time to really see good results from it. I'm not saying not to do it. The firms who have been spending money on search-based marketing for the last 10 years are making bank today. But they weren't making bank 9 years ago, a year into the process, right? So SEO is one piece of search-based marketing. Another piece is pay-per-click ads. Another piece is LSAs, list service ads, map pack ads, the stuff like that. Anything that comes up when somebody is searching actively for a solution are search-based ads. Interruption-based marketing is where you're interrupting somebody's life with this marketing, right? Interruption-based marketing will be your Facebook scroll, your Facebook ads, your Instagram ads, basically your social media ads. It'll also be your YouTube ads. And now YouTube ads could go both ways, right? Somebody could be searching for a solution and YouTube pops up as a solution, and you can have you can target that, right? But you can also do interruption-based marketing. Like, for example, one thing that's really powerful with YouTube is you can target a geo. So you can target an area. Like if somebody was in this area, I want to serve my ad to them. So you can basically target every police station that has a jail cell in it, every bail bondsman's office, every courthouse, right? And basically by targeting all these areas, you're more likely to be getting your ad in front of somebody who needs it if you're a criminal defense attorney, right? So you can be really smart with how you use these things, but understand that interruption-based marketing is the idea there is we want to get in front of somebody who is not actively searching for a problem, right? If they're actively searching, we're much better off being in the search arena because that's where they're going to look. We want to make sure we come up there. We can still do interruption-based marketing, but it's less effective, much less effective in those situations. So once you decide I'm going to go a paid source, now there's also offline things, right? Like interruption-based, if we think about it, like I have a fairly new client in our elite program, and they're doing estate planning and they're doing postcards. They send postcards out in the mail. These are people who didn't ask for information, right? They're not seeking a solution. They're presenting in the postcard a problem that the person has that they don't even know they have. But the moment they ask the question, all of a sudden the person's like, oh, I have this problem. So you can go beyond digital with all of these concepts, but understand this. They're not all scalable. They're not all predictable, right? Like we have to think about those things, especially if it's your first marketing dollars you're spending. If you've got a massive budget and you've done all of the predictable things and you're ready to go beyond that, great. You can go to billboards and TV spots and stuff like that. Those are all examples of interruption-based marketing or brand-based marketing. But you decide you need to do some paid digital. You figure out whether it's search-based or interruption-based. there's two more pieces to this puzzle. Piece number one, understand the concept of who, not how. I don't think, for most of you, 95% of my listeners, that it would make sense for you to try to figure out Google pay-per-click ads. Even Google LSAs, that pretty much a dummy can do, right? There's still stuff to be learned. There's still settings to be tinkered with. There's still numbers to be monitored that you should have somebody in your wheelhouse, somebody in your corner doing that. I want you to always approach every single thing in your business with who can do this for me, not how do I do this. And until you're at a certain level, you should not be considering hiring somebody full-time in your business to do this for you either. So you got to figure out the who in this process. You got to figure out who is going to execute on this marketing strategy for me. They can help you fine-tune it. They can help you fine-tune the budget or understand what that budget's going to drive. But you've got to have a service provider, and we're probably talking about outsourcing to a business outside of your organization, so not hiring an employee, that is going to solve this for you. So that's basically the most important part of this conversation once you've decided paid sources are something you need to do. The last piece of the puzzle, and some would argue I should have started with this first, but I'm going to do it last, and that is the allocation of budget. How much should you spend? Now, going back to the first video or podcast recording in this series, if we go back to the first one, I had this whole conversation with you about mindset, about being a business owner, being an investor. This is where that conversation comes full circle. This is where you now lean on that mindset, right? Because if you want to generate $100,000 a month in revenue, or let's say $1,000 a month in revenue, right? Whether you're going for your first $1 million a year or you're going for your first $10 million a year. If you want to get that destination, you have to invest on the marketing side as if you're already there. Because there is a direct correlation between how much you spend to how much it drives, or how, what the client intake is going to look like. There's a lot of caveats to this, right? So let's say we want to get to $100,000 months. So, and let's say that 10% is the marketing budget. And we'll talk about what the percentage should be in a moment. So 10% of 100,000 is 10,000. So I'm basically saying I'm willing to spend $10,000 a month on my marketing to produce this result. Well, there's another piece to this whole puzzle, which is what happens once the lead comes in. How effective are we handling that lead? What's our speed of how quickly we're talking to somebody? What is our close rate in the sales conversation? How clear are we on what we're charging for the service, right? So when we take all of those pieces together, the effectiveness of that $10,000 spend could be really high or it could be really low. And if it's really low, then we're not going to be able to get to where we want to go, simply because we're not going to have enough leads to get there. Because that $10,000 to spend is only creating $20,000 in revenue. Versus essentially a 10x return of $10,000 to spend producing $100,000 in revenue, which really needs all these systems, all these people, all these processes to be operating at optimal performance. Now, we're not going to go into the sales team conversation today, but I think that before you unleash the full budget that you need to spend to arrive at this result, we got to take a really good, long, hard look at what happens after the lead comes in, because the last thing that I want is to be pouring more fuel onto an ineffective fire, essentially, right? We want this. We want everything to burn really efficiently. We want it to last as long as it can, as it can, right? So in order to do that, we want to make sure that everything after that is working at optimal performance. Stephen Covey said, begin with the end in mind. We use that in so many aspects of business planning, business strategy, right? But here's another one where that's usually what makes the most sense, is start with the end. Start with the client acquisition. Work your way backwards. Fix your close rate. Fix your sales team's performance. Help them to understand how to overcome objections. Help them to understand how to make a more emotional connection with a client. And then once we raise our close rate to an acceptable level, so above 25%, between 25 and 50% of qualified leads, get above that, get into that range, and now we can move back a step further back in the funnel. We can look at our conversion there. And ultimately, when we're happy with all these metrics, we can then say, okay, unleash the hounds, right? Like, let's put out our $10,000 to spend, or our 15 or 20 or whatever it is. So how much we spend, what our budget is, has to be based off of what we're trying to create. And as long as we have effective systems and processes and people behind it, we should anticipate success with that. Now, it might not be overnight success. You need to understand that with a lot of these things, a lot of these paid sources, you got to let the algorithm figure out who to send you. It takes time. We got to figure out, well, let's say Google pay-per-click, right? People think, oh, I'm going to turn it on. I'm going to start getting, clients right away. But there's so much work to be done in finessing. What is the exact keyword strategy? What are the positive keywords we're going after? What are the negative keywords we're avoiding? What is the geography we're covering? What is the amount that we're willing to spend per click? What are we bidding on that? There's a lot of variables. And then when you actually get somebody to click, right, they now go to your landing page. Do they take action on that landing page, right? Like, what's the conversion from the landing page to them picking up the phone and calling, or clicking on a link to fill out a form, or pressing the chat button to talk to somebody? What's our bounce rate? Like, how quickly are people jumping off the page? And then figuring out how to fix that, right? Like, what do we need to tweak? What's the headline need to change to? What's the background image need to change to, right? Like, we start playing with all those things. So there's so many variables in every aspect and every facet of marketing. And this is why you need a who, right? A who, not a how. But also, you need to understand that it takes time. When you embark on a journey of spending money in one of these campaigns, you got to do a really good job of vetting the provider, because there is a test of fortitude in this process. You have to ask the vendor how long, and a cocky vendor will tell you 90 days. A more experienced vendor will tell you 90 to 180 days is how long you need to give them to be able to figure out how to get you results. Because there's a lot of testing and a lot of things that need to change over time. And even if they're right on top of your account, it still takes time. And it's going to take at least 90 days for them to start getting you effective results that you're happy with the return on your investment. So the budget is not just the allocation of the budget, but it's also understanding how long you're committing to spending that before you decide, we're not getting good enough results, I'm going to turn this off. Okay, so how much should you allocate? Again, very lawyer answer, it depends. It depends on a lot of things, but most importantly, it depends on what is the throughput of your business. In other words, a business that can generate $500,000 per attorney has to have a really small marketing budget, say 10% of revenue. A business that could generate $1 million per attorney can probably afford a little bit more, maybe 15%. A business that can do 2 to 3 million or more per attorney could spend even more, could spend 25%. That's why personal injury firms, a pre-lit personal injury attorney should be able to push 2 to 3 million in revenue through in your business annually. And that's why a PI firm is able to spend 25% of revenue on marketing, which is why PI firms have these massive budgets. Because the business model allows for them to spend that much and still be highly profitable. Whereas if you're a litigation firm billing hourly, and the most you could generate for an attorney is $500,000, you don't have a lot of meat on the bone. You still got to get clients in the door. The good news is that in, complex litigation work, you don't need that many clients either. So we don't have to, our marketing doesn't need to acquire a ton of business. But in shorter term duration clients where the average value of the client isn't that high, you need higher volume of clients, but you're going to need to do it on a smaller budget, which may or may not be doable, right? You got to figure that out. Go into the marketplace, check it out. So the guidance is basically based off of the value of the attorneys on your staff. More value we can unlock, higher percentage we can spend on marketing. And hopefully that helps you to maybe solidify and understand how to set that budget. But also hopefully you got a ton of information on how to look at your overall marketing strategy, where you should be focusing. Most importantly, that you have a niche, that you have a target client you're trying to serve. Ultimately, as you grow and as you get fancy and as you're able to, you'll be able to unleash marketing to each target market, right? And you'll be able to acquire each target client separately through separate campaigns. But don't overcomplicate it on day one. You're just going to dilute your budget. You're going to split it too much and get no results instead of some results or instead of great results. So folks, just a reminder, we're going to have 2 more of these episodes. This is the number 3 of 5, and I'm excited about the next one that's going to be released shortly after this one. I know you had a couple of weeks break before this got released. That's going to continue to happen as I get behind the microphone and record these 5 for you. But do know this. We have another 2-day workshop coming up, and I invite you to check it out, profitwithlaw.com/LFG 2026. That is the room you want to be in. If you want to work through this in person and have us work with you on your business, leave with an action plan, a strategy for your business, you got to be in the room for 2 days. And it's a $100K per month workshop, which means that you are going to leave with a plan of generating $100K per month in revenue or $100K per month in profit if either of those numbers talk to you. We'd love to have you in the room. profitwithlaw.com/LFG 2026. We'll see you next week. Take care. Bye for now.